high-level meetings between U.S. and Israeli defense officials, and there is a lot for them to talk about. With the head of U.S. Central Command on a rare visit to Jerusalem over the past few days, today Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman is in Washington. He's already had his face-to-face with newly minted hardline National Security Advisor John Bolton. And next up, in just about 30 minutes, Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis.
In the backdrop, another round of very vocal threats exchanged between Israel and Iran. The latest, Lieberman telling a London-based Saudi-owned newspaper Israel doesn't want war, but if Iran attacks Tel Aviv, we will hit Tehran. Well, for more, let's go to our Tel Aviv studio and speak with our senior defense correspondent, Shai Ben-Ari. Shai, some tough talk from Avigdor Lieberman, but he's just met with someone who also talks very tough, the new National Security Advisor, John Bolton.
Correct. John Bolton, that new appointment, known to be a very pro-Israel sort of type, and someone who has a lot of appreciation in Jerusalem and Israel in general. In fact, Lieberman, we can see this image, actually presented Bolton with a certain caricature of Bolton himself tearing up a famous 1975 UN resolution, essentially comparing Zionism to racism. Mr. Bolton was actually one of the leading figures in the effort to repeal this particular resolution back in 1991. And has remained popular in Israel ever since. Lieberman in a statement saying that he and Bolton basically see eye to eye in terms of the Iranian presence in Syria and also in regards to the Iranian nuclear deal. So, of course, this particular meeting probably overall very positive terms and atmosphere with Jim Mattis, who he will be meeting in a short time later on this evening. Perhaps there could be more, let's say, a different sort of perspective given from the Secretary of Defense, but though even he seems to support the Israeli position, at least in terms of keeping U.S. troops in Syria for the time being, among other things, to block the Iranian influence.
Shai, there's not a whole lot of clarity over exactly what President Trump's policy in the Middle East and specifically in Syria is. In terms of Iran, we heard some mixed messages over the last few days and all those joint press conferences. What will Israel be looking for? What kind of assurances does Lieberman want to get?
It seems that Israel is ramping up the pressure in terms of that, again, that U.S. presence in Syria, while it was just a few weeks ago that we heard Trump saying he wants to bring U.S. troops out of Syria as soon as possible. It seems that there may have indeed been a shift in his own position. This could have been the influence of officials like Mattis, like General Votel, who was in Israel recently. But that certain comment that we heard from Trump just a few days ago in which he said, look, I'd like to bring him out as soon as possible, but we want to keep Iran from getting open access to the Mediterranean Sea, that seemed to suggest that there may have been a shift in the position of the president himself, perhaps as a result of all this pressure put on him.
All right, Shai Ben-Ari in Tel Aviv.